through a lesson or some lessons, and they're designed to be interactive. Hopefully, it will challenge you. Um, you're good people. I want you to turn to Luke 19. And because I believe in you, I know this is just going to be just right. Luke chapter 19 is where we're going to. You remember we did a John 9 thing a while back? And from that, we propelled into several things to talk about with that fellow. Now, I know Steve remember that guy that was blind, Jesus healed him. Pharisees were upset because it was done on the Sabbath, and we looked at, a number of things around that. Luke 19, and it comes on the heel of the interaction with Jesus and Zacchaeus. So what we look at now, understanding that context of what Jesus had how he had just interacted with Zacchaeus, how he follows up with a lesson, with some ideas that he's putting forward to people. Now, at the end of his interaction with Zacchaeus, as he turns to those around, he says, the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. Bear that in mind, and I want to suggest this to you at the very front, that Jesus needs your help. He states here why he came. But I want to propose to all of us that Jesus needs your help in this mission, to seek and to save those who are lost. This was said some 2,000 years ago, and I believe that idea, that desire, is still what Jesus has. But, as we will see as we go along, that baton, if you will, has been passed on to the apostles, his disciples, and continuing through to Christians along the way. And it should still be appropriate, relevant, and a part of what we should see ourselves being a part, doing. So, what is this now that he says? So as they heard these things, verse 11, he added and spake a parable. So remember now, the listeners have just heard, been a part of the interaction with Zacchaeus, seeing that Jesus has embraced this guy, though he was hated by many others. And he puts it in context as he says, this man has now had salvation in his house this day. And here is my mission, to seek and to save those who are lost. So now, as they're hearing these things, he added and spake a parable, because he was near to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the kingdom of God should immediately appear. So in the mindset that they have and where they are, Jesus begins to share this parable. And here is the parable. And here's where now we're going to begin to think, what is our takeaway from this? What does this have to do with us today? He said, therefore, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. He called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds and said unto them, occupy till I come. But his citizens hated him and sent a message after him, saying, we will not have this man to reign over us. And it came to pass that when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded these servants to be called unto him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. Then came the first, saying, Lord, thy pound has gained 10 pounds. He said unto him, well Well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. The second came, saying, Lord, thy pound has gained 5 pounds. And he said likewise to him, be thou also over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in a napkin. For I feared thee, because thou art an austere or strict man. Thou takest up that thou laid not down, and reapest that thou did not sow. And he said unto him, out of thine own mouth will I judge thee, thou wicked servant. Thou knewest that I was an austere man, taking up that I laid not down, and reaping that I did not sow. Wherefore then gavest not thou my money into the bank, that at my coming I might have required mine own with usury? And he said unto them that stood by, take from him the pound, and give it to him that has 10 pounds. And they said unto him, Lord, he has 10 pounds. For I say unto you, that unto every one which hath shall be given, and from him that has not, even that he has shall be taken away from him. But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring here and slay them before me. All right. Let me first of all ask you to make your comment on this on this parable. Just share with me what you see, what you think, if you think something was fair, unfair, whatever. Deep breath. Let it out. Speak. Yeah, you can do that too. You can do that too. All right. So go for it.
God wants us all to be profitable. In other words, we don't just occupy 18 inches of view. That he expects that if he gives us eternal life, we'll get up and do something to appreciate it.
Wise words from a wise lady. Can anybody top that? Hasn't she said it so beautifully?
That's it. That's all. They keep saying, well, works don't save you. No, they don't. But it's not, we don't work for salvation, we work because of salvation.
We have two smart people over here. Anybody over here want to challenge them? Are you in agreement with what they have said? You'll be wrong if you challenge that. All right. So this sets kind of a foundation for what I want us to be considering in terms of ourselves. And in considering that, to actively, when you leave here, go home, be traveling wherever you are, be thinking about what skill, what talent, what ability you have that can be used in the Lord's kingdom to enhance it. None is too small and none is too great. It may be as small as, watch me, look, just turn and look. Some of you can see, some of you can't. See that little thing right there? I mean, I didn't set it there, but I looked down there and I saw it. And I went and I picked it up. It's an insignificant thing, but just to say, what is the intent there? This is our place of worship. And you and I, we come in and, somebody not even realizing drops that and it's on the floor. And it's a little mess and we want our place to look clean, respectable, welcoming. And there are just so many different little things. It might be that. You might have an eye for stuff like that. It may be that you're a good greeter. Right, Steve? Right? Phil? Like to just stand out there in the lobby and say hi as people come in. There are just so many things that we do. And some of them may seem insignificant. And we're going to get into more of that. But I want you to be thinking, what am I good at? There's got to be something.
Jesus said, If you would but give a cup of cold water in my name, you'll no wise lose your reward. And that's not saying that's all we got to do.
Yeah.
That just, it means find your talents, do what you can do. You're right.
So you see where we're going with this? So we're going to elaborate, but I want you to understand that this lesson is practical. It's not just something I want you to say, yeah, I know that scripture, and that's it. It's something I want you to say, I know this, and I see my calling in this in some way. There is some way how I'm going to act this out so that the kingdom will benefit. And here is your eventual plus. When you are ready to leave this world, and you have times, moments when you're reflecting on life, how you have been, what you have done, I want you to sit there or lie there on your dying bed or wherever it is that you're thinking, I have fought a good fight. I have done what I could. I engaged. I wasn't just a pew warmer, right? But I tried to do with the talents that I had, starting with where I was comfortable, to do something to enhance. And it is not just about so that folks at Sweetwater will remember me, but it's like I am creating building blocks for my mansion in the sky. And there's a thing about when people get old and they're ready to die, and they can sit there and think about the good life that they have lived, the service that they have given in the Master's kingdom, more than anything. I mean, I'm not there yet, but if you sit there thinking about all the money you have in the bank, you're going to worry. You're going to worry about what's going to happen to it. How they going to spend? How's my kid going to spend this and that? And you know what? But if you're thinking about the service that I've given in the Master's kingdom, and you're looking forward to being with him, don't you think that's going to give you a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, as they would say? A feeling of confidence and assurance that, I'd done what I could. I used the talent God gave me. I didn't bury it, but I shared it. I used it to enhance his kingdom and to bring glory to his name. Now, here's one of the motivations why we should do this and why we must do this. The Apostle Paul in Romans chapter 1. Turn there with me. Now, bear in mind, and I'm not asking you to be Paul, but I want you to look at the principle of what is in him, what is in you, what is the strength there, and what God saw in him. Remember his former life, what he was good at. He was a determined fellow. He was, once he got laser focused in on something, boy, I tell you what, watch out. He just kept at it. When he cleaned up an area, still need to keep going. And that's the background of the kind of guy he is. He knows his Bible. He knows the Old Testament. He had studied at the feet of Gamaliel, who was one of the more renowned scholars of the time in the Jewish country. But he was not just a learner and a philosopher and an educated man. He was a man who wanted to do something with what he knew. He wanted to apply practically. But now here he is converted to Christianity. And has he carried some of those same ingredients, those same mannerisms, those same characteristics? I believe so. Look at what he's saying now. Verse 9, we're going to begin. Well, let's start at 8. That's a nice place. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. Isn't that a wonderful commendation the apostle is giving to these Roman Christians? Your faith, and remember James said, faith without works is dead. Your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, Without ceasing, I make mention of you always in my prayers. So we are seeing something about the character of this man. He's commending them for who they are, what he knows about them, the reputation that they have out there. And he says, God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit. So what he's doing is not just a pretend, not just an outward show, but it is who he is on the inside. That's the spirit, that's the character of the man. He says, this is who I am, right? And I'm serving, and God can bear me witness. I am serving from the depths of my heart, from my spirit, in the gospel of his son. This is what is on his mind, the gospel of Jesus Christ. This is what he's determined to do. And he says, so without ceasing, I make mention of you always in my prayer. He's a man of prayer, praying for his brothers and sisters, that they would remain faithful, that they would continue to be an example to the rest of the world. Because already says your manner of living is out there. Verse 10, making request, if by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey by the will of God to come unto you. So even in his very travels, I grew up, and I don't do it all the time, I must confess. But I grew up when my parents were going on any kind of reasonable journey. We would hear them say a prayer, usually in the vehicle before we traveled. And I do that sometimes, especially when I'm going on long journeys. But sometimes, just running around town, I don't pause to do that. But look at the attitude of Paul. I'm going to travel. I'm coming to you. That's my intention. And so he says, part of the reason why I mention you in my prayers and I am making requests is that by any means now at length I might have a prosperous journey. So in his travel, he wanted it to be a productive, prosperous travel. So he's not leaving God out of anything in his life. He's going somewhere. He knows he's going to travel, and he say, hey, I want this to be good by the will of God, that I have intention to come unto you. He said, I long to see you, that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift to the end you may be established. Again, as an apostle, he wants to develop their lives. He wants them, remember he starts off commending them of their faith that is known throughout the world. But he still wants them to thrive, to be better. And his intention in coming to them is that he might help them in that upward journey. In life, physically, we seek, our desire in a job that there might be a promotion coming. We may start off lowly, but we want to get up there. That don't really happen for me, Marjorie, but we are there. You are serving and you want to be recognized, but you want to do more. You want to enhance. And so it should be for all of us in the kingdom of Christ. And as we gather in a setting like this, to learn from his word, but not just to know it, but to be able to implement it in our lives and to benefit others. And Paul is saying, look, I am coming, I am longing to see you. The purpose is not just to come look at your faces, as handsome and as pretty as you may be, but so that I may impart something to you that will make you more profitable in the kingdom. And verse 12, that is, that I may be comforted together with you by the mutual faith, both of you and me. So he's saying, we ought to be united. There's something that connects us. Something I see in you, same in me. I want us to be able to encourage and strengthen each other by coming together. Now, just transfer that a little bit to coming to church. That's an indication of how important it is getting together. I'm going to let somebody blush now. Brother Phil sticks me sometimes. Come on down to Wednesday night class. Come on, And And when I'm on my week off, and usually I would be off to Clarksville, the last time he says, come on, come on. And I delayed my going for half of the week to go see my grandkids. I said, this man really wants me to come down and be a part of it. But he's encouraging us to come and fellowship, to come and learn, to come and share. And that's a good thing, right? So, and although last Wednesday I was late, but I think I justified my lateness in being with some other brethren close by, encouraging and helping them before I got here. But this is the principle. And so here we are. And, sometimes when we teach some of these classes, I'm like, I wish I could hold this one back till the others are here so that everybody could hear it. Because some people, and I'm not trying to be rude, but some people you will have noticed that their pattern is that worship to God begins at 11. The service begins at 11. And somehow they never seem to can make it at 10. Some never make it on Wednesday. Now, there might be mitigating circumstances, and later down we may have to look at, do we have just a Wednesday night or Wednesday evening Bible class? It may have to be earlier in the day because folks, as they get older, it becomes a little more challenging to travel at nights and may want an earlier time, maybe mid-morning because they're retired and they'll be at home anyway. And those are things that our elders can look at. I'm not trying to push anything on, but sometimes some people don't come out on Wednesday evening because it can be a little scary, and worse if it begins to rain and the weather turns bad, and you have a half an hour to drive to go back home. And we don't. I remember some time ago we were here one evening. You remember? And I won't call the sister's name, but she was out there and she got confused where she was, and she made a call, and some of us had to figure out where she was and how to get help to her. So those things sometimes affect things, and there are other things too. But going back to the point is that Paul is saying, look, I want to come, I want to be with you because there can be mutual benefit to our association and to us meeting together like this. And this is something that, some of us might be good encouragers to just go to others and say, hey, we really miss you there. We want you there. Come on, there's so much good stuff to learn. And even if you don't get that, you in yourself should be understanding the importance of coming together. And this is just one part that highlights it, because I have started down there to show you where we are going eventually as it relates to the talent that one has. So, but with Paul now, we are looking specifically at his abilities and how he sees it. All right. Verse 13, now I would not have you ignorant, brethren, that oftentimes I purposed to come unto you, but was let hitherto, that I might have some fruit among you also, even as among other Gentiles. So he says, I've been wanting to do this. Time just wasn't right. There were things that just needed to be put in place. But this was always my intent. So don't judge me because it took a while to be there. I want you to know I've always wanted to come. Then now in verse 14, we start getting down to something that we ought to find a way that we relate to. He says, I am debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. Let's pause and think on that verse. Paul has sort of placed, if you will, a burden on himself. He has accepted this notion, this feeling, that I am indebted. I am indebted to others. For what, Paul? Why you feel that way? What he got was so precious to him. Do you see a love that he has for humanity here? That he's like, man, the grace of God, the gift of God that has been given to me, it is so wonderful. It's just so great that I feel that I have an obligation to let others know. And I wish that every Christian would feel that way. it will translate and transform into what we are good at doing. But he felt that, look, I have a responsibility. I have a debt to pay to people out there. What is that debt, Paul? You owe them money? You owe them land? You owe them a visit at a wedding that they're throwing for their child? Or what is it? What is it that you feel an obligation that you need? And why on such a broad term? He didn't specify just a few friends or a few names or a particular location. But he said, I am debtor both to the Greeks and to the barbarians, to those who are wise, to those who are foolish. He's pretty much covering everybody. They don't know God's will for their lives. And he feels like I have a responsibility to let them know, to help them to come to that knowledge. And so it is behind all of this now, he says, so because I feel that I am a debtor, as much as in me is. Now, whatever his limitations are, he's willing to accept them. So he's saying, as much as in me, I'm going to do as much as I have power, strength, ability to do. What are you going to do? He says, I am going to be ready to preach the gospel to you that are at Rome also. I have an obligation. Remember, he has just said, I don't want you to be ignorant. I want when I come, things can flow, things can happen. Remember, he's thankful to God through Jesus Christ that they have embraced the faith, these Christians there, what they're doing. He goes on, God is my witness, I serve God with my spirit in the gospel of the Son. So now he's saying, I am debtor to the Greeks, to the barbarians, to the wise, to the unwise. So, as much as is in me, I am ready to share, to preach the gospel, all right? Preach the gospel. He's a preacher. He's an apostle. He's on fire. So, why this tool? Why this? Verse 16, which we all know so well. Because I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. For it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. So, think about who is saying this. Isn't that the guy who was persecuting the church? Isn't that the guy who was creating havoc among Christians? Isn't that the guy who was traveling out of Jerusalem, finding Christians wherever they are to persecute them? And they knew it. What a change. What a change in this man's life. And look at his position now. And look at the energy now that he's willing to bring to this. He says, I'm ready to preach the gospel here to you in Rome. I want to come. I want to share gifts with you. I want you to grow in your faith. I want you to be what God wants you to be. And I am not ashamed of that gospel. I am proud of it. In other words, because it is that which God uses to save humanity. I know this because I have experienced it. This is what Paul is saying. And I am so joyful, I am so happy for what God has blessed me with. There is nothing else I know how to do but, boy, to just share it. I can't be ashamed of this. And so that's the line in which you go. Your thoughts, your comments.
The time he wrote this, he had an idea of how, if he wanted to go to Rome, as we, of course, read through Acts, we find that he did go there. Didn't go there probably the way he wanted to. But he did go there and stayed for several years preaching and teaching. You know,
Till
we
this-
have ideas of what we want to do in life, as far as our faith goes to things like that. And with things we pray for, and sometimes, a lot of times God blessed us with that, but not necessarily in the manner in which we think it should go and come about. You know, not on our timeline, not on our 50 cents or whatever. But God, if it's good for the kingdom, God's gonna say yes. I believe most in all cases. But we may get to that point in a way we didn't think we were going to. Like Paul.
Yeah.
Stood, set some down a couple of weeks in a storm and shipwrecked, get bit by a snake.
Yeah.
You know,
You ever wonder if you had the power to know tomorrow how it would impact your life? I don't want to know that.
Yeah, you might want to change things.
I don't want to know that because it would spoil your, it would possibly spoil your today.
Yep.
There is a beauty about walking by faith, not by sight. You know, my wife and I, we have a little disagreement on an approach, and I can say to you, you're right quick. Please don't announce this, but the Dailies are leaving, right? They're set to go. They've turned in their resignation. They have been to where they have shrunk it and brought it forward to want to leave quicker. And I told them, do it quick, but they didn't follow my advice. They thought they could stretch it for a whole month, but now it's just going to be 3 weeks. Now it's just going to be 2 weeks. Now it's just 1 week left. But the point is that if they, when you know something ahead, it occupies your today, especially something negative. You become preoccupied with it today, and you sometimes lose the beauty of what is in today. But if you trust God about tomorrow and live today and serve Him, you're going to live a better life, I think. You know, because we see now that people know what's ahead. It's harder on them. It's tougher. But anyway, Paul says, I'm not ashamed. Neither should we be. Every one of us who has experienced the love of God, been impacted by His grace and His mercy, to allow us to become His child, despite who we were. If you lose that, you're going to lose your desire, your will, your energy to want to serve Him. So I ask you, think about that as you're thinking about how you're going to serve Him in this church. Because some of us, and I'm known for being frank, some of us doing stuff, but we could do a lot more. Notice I didn't say some of you. I said some of us, I'm including myself, that there's more we can do in the way, whatever, and some probably doing very little or nothing. They just come to be served. They come sit in a pew, smile, you have to go say hi to them. You know, they don't even hardly want to go say hi to anybody. And some people are shy by nature, but every one of us in the kingdom, every child of God must, and if they want to fire me for that, fine, but every one of you must be doing something for the cause of Christ. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you're supposed to be doing, but if you have not found something that's in you that you can help to share in the kingdom, then you're just taking up space. You're just here to be served and not to be a servant. And Jesus calls us to serve in his kingdom, in whatever talent, in whatever ability we have. And as I said, it may be as simple as this. But find something that, and if that's happening, we're going to be a dynamic church. We're going to be on fire for the Lord. Each one doing, according to their several abilities. And next week we'll look more in specific terms on that. All right. For the bell buzz, she has been gracious. She could have squeezed it, but she didn't. All right. All right. Think on that, please. I do not mean to offend. I do not mean to be rude. If I sound that way, please tell me so I can approach it and speak it in a better way. All right?